ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to Soul Food Poetry Night. Thank you for choosing to be here. I'm Michael Dillon Welch, and we have some good poetry coming up for us tonight. I'm very pleased to have Jill McCabe Johnson with us tonight. Her co-reader is Tina Schumann, but unfortunately she's ill and not able to be here tonight. So, Jill, you could read a little longer if you like. We also have an open mic, and if you would like to sign up, the sheet is over there. And our monthly question this month is favorite things to do in the snow. So think about that. And I guess you have to use your imagination. I don't think we're going to be getting any snow anytime soon, although we did have some a couple weeks ago. I'd like to begin by reading a poem I recently encountered online. It's by the poet Clive James, and it's called "The Book of My Enemy Has Been Remaindered." The book of my enemy has been remaindered, and I am pleased. In vast quantities it has been remaindered, like a vanload of counterfeit that has been seized and sits in piles in a police warehouse. My enemy's much praised effort sits in piles in the kind of bookshop where remaindering occurs. Great square stacks of rejected books, and between them aisles one passes down reflecting on life's vanities, pausing to remember all those thoughtful reviews lavished to no avail upon one's enemy's book. For behold, here is that book among those ranks and the banks of duds, these ponderous and seemingly irreducible cairns of complete stiffs. The book of my enemy has been remaindered, and I rejoice. It has gone with bowed head, like a defeated legion beneath the yoke. What avail him now his awards and prizes, the praise expended upon his meticulous technique, his individual new voice? Knocked into the middle of next week, his brainchild now consorts with the bad guys, the sinkers, clinkers, dogs, and dregs, the Edsels of the world of movable type, the bummers that no amount of hype could shift, the unbudgeable turkeys. Yea, his slim volume with its understated wrapper bathes in the glare of the brightly jacketed Hitler's war machine. His unmistakable new voice shares the same scrapyard with the forlorn skyscraper of the Kung Fu Cookbook. His honesty proclaimed by himself and believed in by others, his renowned abhorrence of all posturing and pretense is there, with Pertwee's promenades and Pierrot's 100 years of seaside entertainment. And oh, this above all, his sensibility and its hair-like filaments. His delicate, quivering sensibility is now as one with Barbara Windsor's Book of Boobs, a volume graced by the descriptive rubric, "My boobs will give everyone hours of fun." Soon now, a book of mine could be remaindered also, though not to the monumental extent in which the chastisement of remaindering has been meted out to the book of my enemy, since, in the case of my own book, it will be due to a miscalculated print run, a marketing error, nothing to do with merit. But just supposing that such an event should hold some slight element of sadness, it will be offset by the memory of this sweet moment now. Chill the champagne and polish the crystal goblets. The book of my enemy has been remaindered, and I am glad. For Clive James, wherever he is. So we'll launch into our featured reader, Jill McCabe Johnson. She is the author of the poetry collection Diary of the One Swelling Sea. Do you have copies? Okay, so look for those at the break. And that was published by Moonpath Press last year. And a lot of you, if you've come here to Soul Food Poetry Night, you know that Lana Heckman Ayers was co-founder of this reading series and helped curate it for many years. And she's the publisher of Moonpath Press. Jill is also the editor of two companion anthologies, Becoming What Makes a Woman and Being What Makes a Man, both from the University of Nebraska gender programs. She is the founding director of Artsmith, an artist residency and arts education nonprofit, and she earned her MFA in creative writing from Pacific Lutheran University. And just last year, I think, was it, or this year, your PhD in English from the University of Nebraska, where I have a friend who's a teacher, which is cool. She and her husband cook and hike together as often as they can, and welcome, husband. Her website is jillmccabejohnson.com, and she writes good poetry. So let's welcome Jill.
Thank you. The really great thing about small presses like Moonpath Press with Lana Heckman Ayers is books don't get remaindered. Yay! So, what's our question for tonight? Favorite thing to do in the snow? I think it's got to be a toss-up between snow angels and snowshoeing, I guess. All right, Michael had a great idea to read one of Tina's poems. So I pulled up one of her poems from terrain.org. Do you all know that journal, by the way? If anybody here likes to write about nature, terrain.org is a great one to submit to. Excuse me. Her poem is entitled Another Sunday, and it was a winner in a contest there last year, I think. Another Sunday, and the eggs have been broken, the bacon laid to rest, the belly of the dishwasher satisfied at last. Oh, satiated, coffeed world with your mind in reverse and your soft body bound in flannel sheets, how have I come to you again? In the crash of weekday waves breaking on the splintered porch, in the gravity and weightlessness that hefts this ball of earth, its rotation part ritual, part benediction. How I covet the hours we will spend in the endless hedge grove of banal and quiet tasks, picking up the magazines, shaking out the doorstep's mat. In the yellow state I am in, I cannot divine the day or fathom a future form. From here, it's nothing more than alliteration of motion, though the calendar pinned to the kitchen wall gapes in silent notation. All attempts at formulation remain null. Tomorrow, I will don my grease coat of complaint, my lab wear of ego. I will stand in the doorway and admire the way the shore so soon becomes the ocean floor. Yay, Tina. Thank you to Tina Schumann. So shameless plug, this is my book. I'm not going to read anything from it. It's all poems. The title is Diary of the One Swelling Sea, and it's all poems told in the voice of the sea, and each one is like a journal entry of the sea, and the titles are all day something. And frankly, I want to read some other things, some newer things, so I'm not going to read from it. But I am going to read about a dozen poems, mostly short, though not as short as the Japanese short form that we're going to hear a few of later tonight. The first one is Sleep Song. If whales can find themselves in the wrong passage, directionless, swimming in their sleep, then who is to say we are not floating in our own slumber, years into emptiness with nothing but the day in, day out sway? combing through tide-swept marriages, we pluck remnants, the strewn toys, refrigerator schedules, plans to go camping, and the promise of a second honeymoon ebbed. Whales do travel in their sleep. Passive echolocation alerts them to rocks, ships, lost jobs, and the ranked wounds of the disgruntled deer. We sleep in front of the television. We disregard tsunami tremors and the salt-stained traces of desolation. No wonder whales beach themselves. No wonder they linger in the receding tide of whatever luck that has carried them this far, but now leaves them languishing amid driftwood and broken shells. So, for a while I was really fascinated with the ends of relationships, and that obviously is one about relationships that are in a kind of stasis. And the next two are about breakups, sort of after the fact. And Sarah's chord progressions is actually after a friend of Charles's and mine who lives in Portland. Sarah's chord progressions. Your 12-string leans against the end of the sofa and thrums a drowsy midnight when I press you to play. In California, you say, there is no winter. The sun shines brighter than orange juice at the organic bakery, and it's warm in January, not like Portland, not like how we read the paper and eat our Sunday scones. Even though the barista wears fringed boots and under her bangs a henna design her boyfriend took one look at and said, "Take that shit off," she calls her feelings love. There's a new Alejandro Amenabar at the Laurelhurst tonight. Or we could just stay in again, stream some movie on Netflix about grieving widows, or a romance on the brink. Eat popcorn and basically chill. When we unfurl from our tangle on the sofa, but before we ratchet down our love, you'll wedge your guitar behind the door to the spare bedroom, now yours, and ladle scoop after scoop of chocolate peanut butter bliss while I scarf down a bag of jalapeno chips. I never eat like this. Sure, we'll stay friends, but after 6 months apart, please don't call to say you're training for a triathlon or taking Spanish guitar from the virtuoso you met at yoga, and how finally you've been able to pursue your passions without me holding you back. Because we both know there's a difference between filling the fallow hours and following a dream. And just so you won't think I'm a total cynic, all the king's horses. In the reckoning of sins, we dredge through the till of our own glacial drift. Your thrown coffee cup, my dissatisfied pout, a stockpile of accusations overflowing the dining table, mantelpiece and bed of our conjugal love. Love, of course, said, with an over-the-shoulder smirk. Who knew winter with her ice shards and bared limbs could outlast us both? Who knew we were not each other's parents, never each other's kids? I only wanted to protect you, I can hear you say. I only wanted you to be happy, I return. When the clock strikes forgiveness, I'll meet you at the door of that theater of the festering heartache. Bring your Yogi Berra imitation. I'll bring my Elmer Fudd. When the clock strikes, we can laugh about it now. Please save a seat for me. So, it appears we have some people who have come actually quite a long way, and maybe not exclusively for this reading, but I'm impressed that we have people here from Nebraska and from Maine and even from India. And so anyway, if there's a prize for whoever's come the farthest, I think that probably India will get it. But anyway, this one was written when I was housemates with, I'm going to put you on the spot, Chris, with Chris. Chris is not responsible for anything that happens in this poem, though. But this was in Nebraska, where the weather can be intense. And it was raining a little bit harder than it is tonight. In fact, a lot harder than it is tonight. But I think tonight's rain will give you an idea. The title is Honey, It's Raining Something Terrible. Waiting inside Best Buy for a downpour of biblical immensity to subside, I phone not because I miss you, but because I can't bear to think about the look on the face of the policeman who comes in hatless and soaked, how he wipes rain from an 8x10 frame before showing it to the store greeter, who shakes his head no. Nor can I describe the face in the picture of the 11 or 12-year-old boy, cheeks round, skin flushed, and eyes whole. Instead, I say how the rain comes down in sheets, how the pavement roils and lightning makes random stabs at us all. The policeman tries to shield the boy's face as he runs to the next store. After he leaves, I watch how, discomposed, the greeter tries to ignore the paper with basic facts and phone number in red, the way he squeezes his eyes closed, and how slowly he shakes his head. Do any of you remember last spring there was a ferry off the coast of Korea, and and there were a bunch of school children on it, and they had died. So this poem is about that, and it's entitled Yellow Sea. And it has a little epigraph from Chung Hae-suk, who was waiting to hear news of her 16-year-old son after the ferry had sunk. And she had said, "My heart is turning to ashes." Her heart curves, spinning toward slag. The bones calcify as her legs scuttle the broken hull of her hips, stranded and listing. Her eyes leak a sallow sea. Her throat, that long, strafed corridor of sorrow, clenches and fists lumps of ashen lie. She knows her son's legs drift like tree limbs that once sifted the wind over Incheon's wise river, where a swirl of apricot petals surges to sea. Soon his jaw will hinge an unhurried song of April, and seaweed will drape and finger the cold currents where ashes eddy all our saltwater hearts. So continuing in these really cheerful subjects, the next poem is about, it's about this endless war we seem to be in, that we often don't even admit that we're still in. And not to go all political on you, but that's what it's about. So the title is Horseshoe Highway. And Horseshoe Highway is actually the name of a road on the island where my husband and I live, on Orcas Island. There's a barn on Horseshoe Highway where every season the owner mounts lights. In spring, a bunny. In fall, a pumpkin. Come December, he usually puts up a star. But this year he erected an angel with wide skirt, broad arms, and an unnaturally tiny head. Driving by late to catch the last ferry, I wonder about small-minded, pin-headed angels. The sweep of the Douglas fir branches, with their dip of vestments and upturned tips, follows exactly the encompassing curvature of angel arms that, even on an indifferent night like tonight, beckon, because now it's January. The war limps on. Christmas and its attendant love thy neighbor have passed. In fact, there are no neighbors out tonight. Only me worried for the dumb angels and noticing how the debris from 3 solid days of wind makes beds of needles and cedar fronds on the forest floor for the 3-legged deer I've seen in these woods, and the raccoon whose eyes shine at night, and the Douglas squirrel who, good soldier that he is, barks when frightened to warn the other squirrels. But none of it is real. Not the angels, nor the loving arms of trees, nor the beds they create for furry friends. Even the compassion I feel is nothing more than a clever selfishness to trick me into thinking, I care, therefore I am. Lost. An undeserved elevation, a reaching toward heaven like the tops of trees. A funny thing about the Doug fir, sometimes it bends a little so it doesn't reach its full height and certainly can't aspire to eternity, as though it bumped its head against life's limits, or perhaps was bowed down like the cedar, dejected at the broken promise of life divine. I want to believe the angel's head is small on purpose, so it won't accidentally lift itself into heaven, but will stay on earth for those of us who need grace most. But this is the foolishness of limited minds, the fearful and superstitious, those of us stubbornly unwilling to fall like needles and boughs. Forgive me. I don't mean to sound unfeeling. It's January. The roadside reflects more brown than green, and what little green remains will turn brown soon enough. I'm just trying to catch a ferry, not thinking about angels staple-gunned to the sides of barns, not thinking about fallen arms, not thinking how we're all nothing more than the future stomping grounds of rodents and the lame. And maybe this is the most perfect, most just reward, that we should lay our bodies into the loam for the limping deer whose leg we hit on a night unbearably similar to tonight. So about a year and a half ago, I was working in Seattle. My husband called me up and he said, hey, I'm going to take a chicken raising class. Do you want to join me? And I said, yeah, sure. Okay, I want to learn how to raise chickens. So I was all excited, and we're going to this really fabulous organic farm. We're going to go learn how to raise chickens, and we're like, I don't know, maybe half a mile from the place, and the timing of this is important. He turned to me. I'm sorry, Charles, I'm just going to totally out you here. He turned to me, and he goes, honey, if you want, I'll kill your chicken for you. Yeah. So I think, okay, I'm a meat eater. I need not to be a hypocrite. I need to kill my own chicken. I've got to face this. It doesn't come wrapped in plastic at the store. And so I get myself all psyched up for this, right? And there were, I don't know, a dozen people. I don't remember how many people who are there to all learn how to raise and, yes, kill chickens. And I'm thinking, I just want to get it over with. So then they're ready. They've got all the chickens, ready for slaughter. And they go, okay, who'd like to go first? And I go, I would! Not really thinking how that looked. And so 4 people pulled me aside after I killed my chicken, and they go, will you kill my chicken for me? I said no. So this poem is First Kill. I positioned myself to the right of the bird, partly to block the view of the other chickens watching from their tractor, partly because I am right-handed and needed to thrust forward with the knife. Its body nestled in an upside-down cone, the head dangled helplessly as I pulled the neck taut, pointed the tip in front of the spine, and forced myself to drive the blade deep. A sickening grizzle of metal through feathers and flesh. Dogs shake a bird to addle its brain. Eagles drop their prey, letting gravity finish the kill. I used a knife in my hands, then watched the blood drain pink as rubies or raspberry syrup. That afternoon, a colony of carpenter ants swarmed the house. Thousands dotted the siding and eaves, while in the backyard, caterpillars strangled the branch ends of every deciduous tree, dogwood and ginkgo and plum. Robins raided the garden, and even the hummingbirds dive-bombed the heads of those who ventured too close. I stood back as far as I could from the feeder and forced myself not to think how red its nectar was, how slowly it drained, how rare and how sweet. So I'm going to read a few that are newer ones for me, and they're really, I don't even know what I think of these. I don't even know if I like them. They're sort of experimental for me. But I thought, what the heck? I'll share some, for me, kind of weird new stuff. And this one is entitled "A Map is a Wayfinding." And I'm going to turn away from you for a minute and sniff impolitely. Excuse me. Okay. A map is a wayfinding. A map is a wayfinding, navigation to the past and future, making order of where we've been, plotting course for where to go. A map marks treasure, places we'd return again and again. A map is a chart to stave off loneliness, each carefully measured road, a string leading home. A map tells a story. Let's not talk about legends, not yet. Who doesn't love the feeling of unfolding a map, smell of ink in the creases? The palm is a map, each road predicting wrong turns, broken hearts, and babies before trailing off the edge. The brain is a map, each neural pathway returning us to our senses, memories, the ghosts lying in wait. The veins in your arm are a map. Enter at any point, and they will take you directly to the heart. Your breath on the window is a map, written in the cold, or offering fog, indecipherable, opaque. The constellation of your indifference is a map. I fold the torn sections, put them back on the shelf. A maze is a map for getting lost, slowing down, relinquishing control. A map is denial, only roads, not music, only the compass, not the rose. Your pheromones wafting along the trail in front of me make a map. I follow, I follow, I follow. So is anybody really incensed that a cyber attack on a company over a movie has pretty much thrown a monkey wrench in free speech in America? Yeah, I'm a little upset too. This poem has nothing to do with that, by the way, but but it is a rant about something else that really ticked me off. I went to sushi with some friends, and one of them is from Iran, and nice guy, and he really wants the best for Iran, and he frequently tells his friends how, like, women have it great in Iran now. They can kind of wear Western dress, and they can go to school, and they can hold jobs. And then he said something at this sushi dinner that really ticked me off. So bear with me. I'm going to go on a rant here. Tower of Gari. Blame it on the ginger that wasn't dyed pink, that slice of bite and pungent sting that rolled on our rumble of laughter when one of us said, "Watch out, women only get pregnant so they can trap you." And ha, didn't we chortle as though anyone believed this, because we didn't, did we? Not Ryan, who bemoaned the fact he hadn't met any eligible women, or Marty, who was married already, whose wife was deep in conversation with Ian, who everyone called the romantic, who deplored prenups and believed in falling as far and as deep as you can, and not Jason, ever a gentleman, ever a quiet, unassuming smile. So who then believed when he said, "I don't mean anyone here, not in this country," laughing and winking. "Never here. I only meant those women in Iran." As another round of laughter and sake shook the table, and all the stories I had wanted to believe, stories you'd told of how the women in Iran are treated as equals, who can wear Western clothes and legally have a say now whenever their husbands bring home a second or third wife. And to be fair, the oppressions had come under Arab rule, Muslim rules, not Persian, which you and your family are, including the women who, like you, represent everything esteemed about Iran, educated, cultured, generous, and kind. And today, Iranian women can go to college, attend sporting events, and can even compete in sports, although they face harsh punishment if they wear any form-fitting lycra and don't secure their hijab veils over long-sleeved, loose-fitting shirts to make certain their shape and their skin won't trap unsuspecting males into wanting them, into inserting innocent penises into flagrant and conniving vaginas. No tricks, no lipstick, no concealer, no eyeshadow, no blush, nothing remotely resembling that devious sliver of slutitude, that wet, stinging morsel of pink. So the fabulous fiction and nonfiction writer Sarah Perry is here, and she and I just enjoyed a residency at Playa Summer Lake in Oregon, and so these next couple of poems are super, super, super fresh, and anyway, written at the Playa. And this one is entitled December Dusk Playa. Dark comes early with the Dark comes early with the thickening cumulus as the wolf salivates for pasture provisions, weasel and prairie dog burrowing good night. He scraggles his fur on pinyon bark and masks his scent in sap, lifts his nose to gauge the distance between rabbit warren and now. The wolf knows my scent gone dry. He is old as dusk creeping over the sill. When the wolf's forepaw touches the porch, I waken, unsure what I've dreamt, except wind scratching branches, his eyes golden on mine. And unapologetically political and liberal. Here we go. Sensitive and extirpated in the industrial military complex. We scour in subalpine the elusive Nevada primrose, waxflower, and whitlow grass, attenuated in limestone, overgrazed by sheep. Tracks of mule deer, jeeps, and all-terrain vehicles cross in a wide expanse of morning, frozen in spring mud, hardened in summer heat. We inspect the ground under roots, afraid to find the endangered beer tongue or sandwort, marveling at death, its improbable names. In the distance, an airplane surveys the sky. drone of engines, satellites tracking humans, their habits and habitats. Heads bowed and hopeless, we've lost our way home. So every reader who comes here is invited to bring a poem to contribute to the Soul Food Poetry Night book of poems. And this last poem I'm going to read is that poem. And before I read it, I want to thank Tanya and Michael for inviting me, and thank you on behalf of Tina, who unfortunately couldn't be here, and also thank Soul Food Books, Coffee House, yes, yay, fabulous food, fabulous coffee, fabulous everything, and I'd like to thank all of you for being here too, and I'm really, really excited to hear the rest of you read. So, last poem, here we go, Kitchen Waltz. We tilled our garden beds, making way for heirloom starts, cuddled into careful impressions. The peppers we staggered, left to right, front to back, and they did in a way resemble dance steps, instructional patterns for those less nimble like me. I questioned the wisdom of eggplant near sunflower. He questioned my carelessness, the brush against chickweed, launching seeds into startled orbit. But then I brushed him, or he grazed me, and we gathered sprays of rosemary, marjoram, thyme, and a quiver of chives before stepping inside. Something happened next in the kitchen, the alchemy of lovers, where food as primeval as catfish finds sesame oil and tikka masala, scallions and pecans, greens melted in the pan, then on our tongues like our muscles later in bed. I doubt either of us dreamt of dancing, but one of us said turn in our sleep. Loud enough to wake us both, but not so loud we could tell who had spoken. Two cooks, one mind, a drowsy shifting under the covers, two forks entwined, a stomach pressed against a back, the other stomach unbridled in breathing. I thought of quail, savory, delicate, and buttery, with fresh sage and arugula. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. Something I'd like to know is how many pin-headed angels can dance on the head of a pin. And I also wonder, 100 years from now, when people read a line like, "We'll stream a movie on Netflix," what that will mean. You'll have to have footnotes for some of our poems that are technologically about technological subjects. Thank you. Appreciate it. It's now time for a short advertisement. The first advertisement is you are all invited to Poets Wanted, Dead or Alive. This is a series of events I'm putting on at the library, sponsored by the Friends of the Redmond Library, and I have postcards for this. There are some on the tables if you want to take one. There are 5 evenings focusing on 5 dead poets. They are Octavio Paz, Mexican poet, and we'll have a featured guest there who is a student of Paz to talk about his experience. Robert Frost, he will not be there, and we couldn't Skype him in, but we hope to have somebody else talk about him in addition to me. You'll have to hear me talk about these guys too. Basho, the Japanese poet, Rabindranath Tagore, which I'm really looking forward to, and ending with Theodor Retke. And these take place in January and February, and all of these events are free, so please come to those if you can, even if you're from India. In addition to that postcard, there are also bookmarks. This is in conjunction with my second year as Poet Laureate for the City of Redmond. It mentions the Poets Wanted thing, and also the Poets in the Park conference, which is coming up on June 20. So ask me if you have questions about that. And something that's just happened, and I'm very pleased about this, is the City of Redmond has just published my new book, which is called True Color, and it fans out like this, with color photographs alternating with the poems. So you get the idea. So kind of an unusual thing with lots of different photographs and poems, each all focusing on different colors, like a painter's swatch book. And I have copies of that available down here. I also wanted to mention the next Soul Food Poetry Night reading is coming up January 15, and it features Anne McDuffie and Michael Schmelzer. So please come for that on January 15, 7 p.m. as usual, and our usual open mic. And do I have any other announcements? Well, of course. Get some food. We're going to take a break. Get some snacks. Get something to drink. And if you haven't yet signed up on the open mic sheet, it's down here. Also, our question of the month is favorite things to do in the snow. So if you wrote down Mad or Ramesh, you need to answer that question on the sheet. Or if you haven't yet answered the question, please, maybe they don't have snow in India. I don't know where you live. Make it up. Think of something, if you like. And after a short break, we'll start again with our open mic. So thank you again, Jill.